Um, well, Abigail, can you introduce yourself? Can you tell me about happy endings and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Abigail. I write happy endings, which I've been doing for coming on 2 years this fall, I think. It's a an exhibition of love, is what I call it. I talk a lot about this my sex life as a married mom, but also just about how love feels for me, and that is both familial and romantic and platonic. So, kind of stretching the bounds of love. I started it mostly because I wanted to have a vehicle for kind of a weekly, regular love meditation for myself, is how I think about it, where every week, whatever is festering and bubbling in me on the topic of love, I like to focus on it and think about it and allow that to kind of fill up my creative space and my heart to kind of make sure that my time is spent in the place that I want it to be, which ultimately is in service of love. So, yeah, it was kind of a public good that came through my private personal good of wanting to do this. So, yeah, that's what Happy Endings is about. My background is that I work for a sex video website called Make Love Not Porn, and I've been there for 7 years. I'm the head of revenue. And we've been working on growing this company to spread the difference between real world sex as a different version of sex than performative porn, which is what most online sex videos are.
Yeah,
Yeah. Before all of that, I used to work in festival production and do marketing for all kinds of businesses, like even distilleries and whatnot. So, and also have a bit of an activist political background too. But yeah.
cool. Yeah, I love that. Well, part of what I'm interested in is the overlap because we both write about motherhood and sex and kind of how to integrate sexuality into, um, well, I guess motherhood and also married life. I mean, I feel like a lot of people get married and then they stop having sex and they have kids and they stop having sex. So that's partly what I'm curious about is like your experience of um, how sexuality changed becoming a mother, how sexuality changed when you got married. I read that one piece where you were like, oh my God, one dick for the rest of my life or something like that. And I had the same thought when I got married.
Yeah, I know. I think that's something that you and I do that isn't very common, right? That like the co conversational trope of married people in heterosexual relationships and married mothers, of course, who are caring for their kids is that this is the time of life where you aren't having a lot of sex, and I think that that is just not it's not a good message, and it's also not accurate. Like technically it's not accurate. So I wanted to be able to say that no, other people live differently. And I'm really glad to have found you who is doing a similar thing because my sexuality did change and it's mostly for good, which I would never have expected. Like my relational background before deciding to marry my husband, Joe, is like I'm a bi woman. I consider myself a relationship anarchist. I was not necessarily thinking that I wanted to be married. I definitely wasn't thinking I wanted to be monogamous. I definitely didn't have motherhood as like a top aspiration for myself. But, there's I think purpose for people beyond what you think you want. And I certainly felt that once I met my husband, like kind of all of my preconceived ideas of what is good and right kind of started to crumble. And I think those are just those beautiful relationships that come for you in all kinds of forms. And my marriage is one of them. Um, and yeah, even though it all felt so right physically in my body, you still are like approaching our elopement the night before we were sleeping in a hotel room in Gibraltar, because in Gibraltar you can marry as an international couple without having like fiance visas. So it's kind of like an international Las Vegas. And we went there pregnant with our first on the eve before travel bans during COVID, and I'm sitting there
Oh,
like staring out at the harbor thinking, fuck, this is it, like one dick forever. Really, this is what
yeah.
I'm about to enter into. But, even even though that's our premise right now, like when Joe and I were first seeing each other, and sorry, I'm going on such a tangent.
No, I
uh,
love it.
Thanks. Since I'm bi, one of the really important things I wanted to talk about with somebody that I was going to have a serious relationship with is, are you open to, in theory, an open relationship in the future? Like if one day I wake up and I realize that I've been sexually constipated for 6 months because I'm really craving something that Joe's just not able to provide, like, are you open to figuring out a way to make that work for me?
Mhm.
And he was. But this conversation that we had was not easy nor straightforward. It pushed on some of his insecurities of what being a man is and being a partner is. And so we kind of came to this like not very black and white understanding of who he is and what he wants. And for him, it definitely is like a one dick equation. That was our conversation in the beginning, right? But
Well,
we all know consciously as humans who've experienced change in life that things are different. What we think that we want when he was 32 at the time of that conversation is probably going to be different than when he's 42 in a couple years. So um I could say, yes, I'm ready to opt into this, but I also have that deep understanding that who he thinks he is might be changing as well. So who knows, right?
yeah. My husband and I had a similar conversation, I mean, with a different flavor, but just having that openness, like if this doesn't feel right or we feel like we want to um, be sexual with someone else, like, is that possible? And somehow just having that feel possible helped me feel less trapped, or scared or something. I was also pregnant when we got married. I didn't
Right.
know that for you, but yeah, I was like 6 months pregnant with our first, and we had gotten engaged right before I found out I was pregnant. And
Dude.
yeah,
Yeah, was it for you guys? I don't know. Like when I say that, it makes me feel like I'm some old-fashioned person who's like, I don't think I can possibly have a baby without a commitment, but it wasn't like that necessarily. It was
yeah,
a little bit like that for him, where I think that for him, he thought like, oh, I want this child to be born into dependability. Like the law will back him in life for for the child. But
yeah.
what was it like? What was the reasoning for you guys?
You know what? I would have to ask my husband because I don't remember exactly. I always knew that I wanted to have babies. Like that is part of my background is I was very sure about the baby part and not sure about the marriage part or the one partner part.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was like the little girl that grew up fantasizing about being surrounded by babies. I never imagined my wedding. There was no white veil. I just thought like I'm going to have tons of babies and travel the world on my own. And that, I don't know. I mean, it's like that was my childhood fantasy that I'm very glad I'm not doing that on my own at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
No, totally. So much respect to people who do it on their own. Holy fuck.
yes.
That's
And
Olympic.
travel like that, like anyway, but um yeah, I think my husband felt a lot more sure that he wanted to get married, that piece was really important for him.
Yeah.
I think partly it was about taxes, honestly. It's like um
Practical.
but yeah, I think there was a commitment piece too, like knowing that I wanted babies, he wanted to be married before we had the babies was
Yeah.
part of it. And for me, there also was a practicality piece that like we had gotten engaged and then I got married or then I got pregnant and then I didn't want to get married like breastfeeding or with a tiny baby. So we
Mhm.
were kind of like, well, let's just do this like quick fun wedding and then have the baby.
Yeah, I think it's romantic.
Yeah.
The bump under the dress.
Yes. Well, he surprised me and he got down on his knees and did vows to the baby, to my belly, which was
Oh my God, full body
really
chills.
sweet.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh.
So then everyone cried and yeah, it was very sweet.
Oh, damn. We were never properly engaged. The night that we like confessed our love to each other, the whole premise was that I'm in London and I'm probably only here for 6 months. And so 3 months into our relationship, we hadn't even said anything about our feelings because it kept being like, no, I'm leaving in a few more months.
Uh-huh.
Um, so 3 months in, we were like, I love you. And when I said that to him, he just stood up and he said, we were laying in bed and he goes, okay, thank God, because I've made a whole plan of how we can be together. And
Oh,
option number one was, of course, that we'd elope together. So uh, we
yeah.
kind of had this idea that marriage was a part of our future, but never in like a traditional proposal kind of way. And we also didn't even write our own vows, which I think both of those things are a little bit funny that love is so important to me. And yet it's just why do we say that it means this, right? Why does
Yeah.
in romantic relationships equate to custom vows? I mean, it's beautiful and fucking amazing that your husband did that. Please, all guys, please do that if you want. But also, it doesn't have to, right?
Yeah, right. Well, we were kind of planning to elope too. I mean, the plan was like, let's go to the courthouse and we'll just do this quick wedding and then we'll have a big party later, like after the babies are born, and which still is our plan. But I told my mom, and then she said, well, I'm going to be there. And then she told a few other family members, and they were like, we're there too. So then all of a sudden we had like a family wedding, and
That's cute.
it was sweet.
Nice.
It was,
Yeah. I
yeah,
also never dreamt of the like veil. But I did like if you're going back to our childhood idea of the future, I think that that core in me has always known that I have kids. Like I'd always gravitated towards childcare role play kid things, like little
mhm.
play situations. So I think that that has always been for me true too, but I didn't, yeah, see a wedding and see a dress.
Yeah,
Mm. Mhm.
yeah. The other thing that stood out for me when you were talking about your background is the make love not porn um, piece,
Yeah.
which I'm really curious about. I've not watched the videos, but now I want to go and watch some of them. Um, what came up for me was like I'm so grateful that there's something like that out there so that I mean of course I have two little boys and I would like to teach them about sex when they're ready, but I hear these stories about teenagers watching porn and then like learning sex from that and just having really bad sex for a very long time. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful that there's something else available.
Totally. No, that's why it was all founded. Like my boss, Cindy Gallup, she dates younger men and has for the majority of her adult life. And if you're constantly dating people in the 20s as time moves on, and suddenly the people in their 20s are people who were born in the 80s and 90s who had access to porn, and that became their sex education. And she started noticing how men in their 20s started having sex differently than men in their 20s had a decade before. Uh,
Whoa.
and just kind of like practically seeing the impact of access to online porn and how that's taken the place for sex education and taken the place for just exploring on your own and learning from doing instead of, the visual media of it all.
Yeah.
So that's why we exist. And then my role in it is just to help spread this. So hopefully that one day anybody who has access to Pornhub will also know that they can come to us as well. And the videos are fun. It's sexy, it's hot, it's also sweet and sappy, and sometimes you'll like cry and laugh and also get aroused, which is kind of like the best of life, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds great. I love that.
Yeah. I also have two boys, by the way, so another thing we have in common.
Yeah, I know. That's so funny. I sort of feel like we're living a parallel universe where you're like in the big city and we're like out. We're in a big city in Montana, but we're sort of in the middle of nowhere.
It's Missoula, right?
Yeah, we're in
Yeah.
Missoula.
I drove through once. It
Me
seems like
too.
a cool place to be.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
cool place.
And McLovin porn and that like whole idea of this feels really related as well to you and your project, your writing project of like fucking versus making love. Like that I felt like there's a similar work life, creative life thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I haven't played with that project in so long, but that was such a cool pivotal moment for me to be in this human sexuality class and have this project to write my sexual autobiography, which now I just feel like I want everyone to write their sexual autobiographies. I want to read them. Like, I'm so curious about because it was such a cool exploration. I was only 19 at the time, so I was pretty new to all of this. Um, I mean, I was like just getting started and kind of thought I knew what I was doing, but really didn't.
Mhm.
Um, and going back and looking at like what ideas did I grow up with? What did I read when I was little? Magazines, music, like what did I learn on the playground? What did my parents teach me or not teach me? All the weird stuff that I learned in sex ed at school, which was basically how I learned about sex to begin with, and then kind of discovered that it was all wrong. I mean, I basically learned in school like don't have sex until you get married, and if you do, you'll get addicted to drugs, you'll get horrible diseases, and you'll probably die. You know, like that was the basic message, and I was like, oh, okay, well, sounds terrible. You know, there was nothing about pleasure. There was nothing about love or fun or like why people do this to begin with. It was just like, don't do it. It's bad. And
Yeah.
but this is how people make babies. So maybe you could do it one day, like once in the future.
For sure. Yeah, mine also was pretty crappy. The conventional education I got. My dad always referred to anything intimate as just hugging and kissing. This
Oh,
great euphemism, you know? And so there was just so many unknown things, but I've always had a really like core connection to pleasure. And so I think that like deep in my inner knowings or whatever, I knew that there was sexy, hot, fun, cool things that could go down and I wanted it and I was excited for it and I had the ability to masturbate and orgasm from a very young age. And so I knew there was a big disconnect from all of the like secrecy and the lack of information and the danger that people in school were evoking in the health class that wasn't feeling true in my heart and in my body. And yet I didn't feel like I had anywhere else to turn to learn more about it and kind of just felt alone for a long time, which is an alienating experience for somebody who wants to express themselves and explore themselves. But
yeah.
and maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that kept me safe. And maybe if I came of age with even more access to the internet, like I was born in 92, and so I had the internet from probably what, like 10? But what if I had it at 7 and found a chat room? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I'm a little bit older than you, so I had even less access to the internet, which I feel okay about. I don't feel like I would have gotten better information from the internet, but I mean, who knows? I just the place where I go back is like I wish I had known. I also had an easy time finding orgasm on my own, and I was very in tune with pleasure. I grew up with a Zen Buddhist family. Well, we were Jewish and Buddhist, but
What?
within the Zen Buddhist community, it was like passion and sexuality are bad, you know, like that.
Yeah.
So, and my family, we talked about death a lot. Like in Zen Buddhism, death is like this really big important thing. You think about death a lot to help your life be better and to not waste time. And so I had this weird sense in the back of my mind, like, okay, I'm in this family where we talk about everything, including death, which most families don't talk about, but we don't talk about sex. Like there must be something really bad about it if we don't
Hmm.
talk about it at all, you know? So I sort of had that, like, and then realizing at some point that I was very sensual and that I was very in tune with pleasure, but I was sort of with this culture where that was bad. I was like, well, maybe I'm a bad girl. Like, I don't know, you know? So that it just was such an interesting exploration. And what I wish I had known more about healthy sexuality before I started having sex, because my ideas about like pleasure and orgasm with another person were so wrong. You know, I just didn't understand like what it was about when you have an orgasm with someone else, or how to find pleasure with someone else. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, yeah, no, completely. Like the way that I'm talking about all this with my kids has been cool to explore. Like I think about it, my boss Cindy says that you should talk to kids about sex like you would talk to them about blowing their nose, right? It's like a function of your body, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have any taboo. Um, and so I've been working at that and it's been going well, but I'm curious how it'll evolve as their curiosities expand and get more specific and into things that my deep subconscious might still, even to my un even if I'm unaware of it, have discomfort with. So yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? That
Yeah.
yeah, damn, I'm trying to imagine how that would have been to have so much that your family was able to talk about, but not that. Yeah, like there was my mom passed when I was young, so death was around, but we still weren't even talking about it that much, you know? It was
Mm-hmm.
like even our grief that we were all experiencing together wasn't like a dinner topic, you know?
Yeah.
We'd cry and like pat each other on the back and whatnot, but it wasn't
Right.
like we're in the weeds of shit. Very
Yeah.
Midwestern. Hmm.
Well, it's interesting generationally. Like, that's why my family talked about death so much, because my parents' families didn't. And so their parents died, and it was all this like strange hidden mystery, and there was no plan. And, you know, they
Yeah.
didn't talk about it like even while they were dying. So they really wanted us to grow up knowing about death. And so like in my family, I don't want sex to be a taboo topic. So that's one of the generational pieces that feels true now, is that yeah, we're like talking about people's bodies and how babies are made and how people can like enjoy each other's bodies, and you know, consensuality and pleasure. And it is tricky. My boys are 3 and 6. How old are your boys?
2.5 and 5.
Wow. Yeah. Right. So my 6 year old is just starting to have questions. Like we talked about, like, well, the sperm and the egg and they come together. And he's like, but how do they get there? You know? So
My
we
kid hasn't
just,
said how yet. So that's the
yeah,
funny thing is like I'm just answering the questions and I'll add on some things if it feels like it's a very important thing, but even him not saying how yet, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to talk about that part yet
right.
because he's not
Yeah.
asking, right?
My 6 year old is almost 7. And this was like maybe a month ago. This was the first time he asked me, how does the sperm get to the egg? You know? And so I told him, I was like, well, usually the penis goes in the vagina and then the sperm shoots all the way up and it swims as quickly as it can to get to the egg. And he was like, that's disgusting. And I said, well, you might not think so when you're older, you know? But,
I
oh,
know. My kids right now are like the topic really comes about when they have an erection, right? Like their penis is
yeah.
hard and it just like bodily functions, right? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's really uncomfortable when that happens, right? Because they kind of hate it right now. And I'm like,
Oh,
Eventually you might enjoy it, and that's okay too, you know? And
yes.
like adding those little frilly bits on just so that the seed is planted and when they're ready to talk about it, we can. But to your point about like having pleasure in a partnered relationship, that's something that also, of course, never came past my awareness. And even when I started, like I was very lucky, very lucky. Like my first person I was sexually exploring with wanted to explore me, right? But I
Mhm.
was so like freaked out by it. And it's funny to look back on that young me and who was saying like, "Oh no, please don't put your mouth on my vagina, my vulva like that.
Well,
It's freaking me out. Why would you want to do that?" You know, like I thought it was gross. But
yeah.
just the blocks that people have to come through when there isn't the knowledge given to them that that is a thing that people do and enjoy, and maybe one day you might as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I feel like the way that I was introduced to this was with so much fear. And so I was scared, so it just was sort of this throwaway thing. Like, it's probably going to be terrible. So I guess I'll try it, but I'm sure it's not going to be any fun. And it took a long time. Actually, the first time I had sex was when I was traveling. I was in Ghana, West Africa, and I came home to California and I went out to dinner with this really good family friend and she looked at me and she was like, "You've had sex." And I said, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, I can tell." And I thought, "Oh my God, can my mom tell?" And she asked me, she's like, "Was it any good?" And I was like, and she took me to a bookstore right after that. She was this older woman who was lesbian and had like come of age in the 70s and like knew Bob Dylan and had done all these amazing things. And she took me to this bookstore and she got me this book, also from the 70s, called For Yourself. Do you know that book?
No, I'm
Get it.
not.
For Yourself, The Fulfillment of Female Sexuality by Lonnie Barbach. Um, she's like the head of human sexuality at Berkeley, something like that. And anyway, it totally changed my life. Like, the whole thing was, it's all about exploring yourself and not having any expectation that someone else is going to like teach you or guide you or give you pleasure, that like you have to know where it is and that it's basically your responsibility, as a woman, and that then you can guide your partners to know, like, this is what I like. Let's do
Oh, I
this.
love this. I didn't know anything about her. I love this so much. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. I talk a
Yeah.
lot about erotic responsibility on happy endings because I do feel like that's something that is so fucking important. And in the
Mm-hmm.
world, how much we're offloading to convenience. And
Yeah.
I work for a sex video website. Like I watch sex videos on occasion myself, but like the dependence that I had gotten to before, and that some I know people have, where that is the only mechanism that they use for their own self-exploration, like that is a problem. That is
Yeah.
offloading so much of your own pleasure to somebody else, to a visual tool that is going to be lessening the experience that you're having. So, yeah, I'm really curious to know to read this.
Yeah, it's great. I just started rereading it in preparation for my pelvis class because I've started recommending it to all these women. And I'm like, I think I haven't read this since I was 19. I better go back and read it again. But it's amazing. They started all of these women's groups for orgasm, and they would call it, was like these women were pre-orgasmic. They didn't want to say that they are anorgasmic because they basically taught all these women how to find their orgasm. And for some of them, they could find their orgasm on their own but not with a partner, and so they had all these tricks and tools and practices, and most of them were able to orgasm on their own and with a partner after the groups.
So cool.
Yeah.
Another thing, I love that phrasing of like pre-orgasmic because I totally view our connection to our own sexuality as something that evolves with time. Like, obviously, why wouldn't it be like we get better at any skill that we practice
Yeah.
as humans? So why do we all think it's like yes or no, this or that,
Totally.
like one or the other? And like
Mhm.
my, even though I could have an orgasm when I was fucking like 6 years old, I now, as a 34-year-old woman, have so much m more closeness to that. Like it's
Mhm.
when I was younger, when I was 25 even, it was like the orgasm evaded me, you know, like I was trying to chase it down sometimes and
Mhm.
I would always lose it. But now it's like I have such closeness to it. I I know how to bring it on. I know how to extend it. I know how to enjoy it. And I like
Yeah.
joke sometimes with my friends that like, oh, if I'm forecasting into the future, like maybe I'm gonna be one of those people who can just like come with their hands in the air because I like looking at my trajectory. It's been amazing. It's remarkable, really,
Yeah.
how much more power you can feel in orgasm, in your pleasure, when you're
Yeah.
just like noticing it, working with it, you know?
Yeah. Totally. Well, when I was a kid, I would have orgasms on accident. I remember like bouncing on those gymnast balls with my brother and being like, what's happening to me? And
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, now it's much more intentional. I was even thinking like one of the storylines that's not talked about very much, but that I hear with my clients and with friends is how many women have better orgasms after having babies. I think partly because their experience with their pelvis and with those muscles is so different and so much more in tune and um, respectful. And it's like suddenly the pelvis becomes this amazing place
Mhm.
that's able to do so much. And you can really feel, when it goes well, as long as things are okay and the healing process is good. There's like other traumatic things that can happen, but best case scenario, it's like everything expands and you just have this increased awareness of the whole area of the pelvic bowl and more attunement, an ability to actually like contract and relax these muscles, which are the same muscles that contract and relax during orgasm.
Yeah, totally. I read your piece about the traumatic birth that you were a part of, and it just gave me so much feeling. My first birth was not ideal by any means. My second birth was like the perfect equal but opposite hero's journey,
Yeah,
completion and healing
me
process for
too.
that first birth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And even I found this midwifery practice called Heart Science that
Mm.
it's just down the road for me. It felt too fucking crazy where I'm sitting here like melting, pregnant with my second, thinking like, I can't do this the same way. I know I need something different. I know that my mind is blocking me from my body. I know that, but what do I do to like bridge the gap? And then I find these people who their whole ethos is about the mind blocking your body's birthing process and the impact of stress on the pregnant person. And I just thought
Yeah,
like, fucking hell, thank God I found them. They were the best. The head midwife who started it is named Kim Son. Love this woman so much. She'll always have a huge place in my heart. But I bring it all up because yes, how a good a positive experience of birth can connect you to your body so deeply, which I think is a big barrier to a lot of women for enjoying sex and to
yeah,
connecting with their own pleasure,
yeah,
is just how over intellectualized and pushed into our brain humans are right now in the modern world. And honestly, I like it. I love being in my brain. I love thinking, which is a problem for a person who also loves coming, you know? Like, so I have to
yeah,
um, intentionally balance that for myself. And I think a lot of people don't do it intentionally, right? And
yeah,
that's one of the big issues that stopped me. And of course, the medical systems as they are is not going to help me in that front. I was on a train that was clearly going to go that direction, knowing my own constitution and I was in Minnesota at the time,
mhm,
and they have amazing resources. I was with a great birthing center, but the law says if you go over a certain amount of weeks, you have to go to a hospital. And once that all cracked off, which was an inevitable thing for a person who's my height, I'm 6 foot, and I think like larger mammals have a longer gestational period. So it was truly inevitable. And if I knew more, I could have seen that coming, but I didn't.
yeah. Well, another piece about this is that the rules about birth are different state to state. Maybe you
Yeah.
already know this, but like in Montana, you could go 43 weeks and that's fine, depending
Oh,
on your providers. So, right?
yeah.
Like if you
Amazing.
were planning a home birth with midwives in Montana, they would probably say, let's do a stress test and like make sure baby's fine. We'll check the fluids. And as long as everything looks good, like no problem. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're in a different state where they have a very strict cutoff, then.
Yeah, Minnesota was a strict cutoff. My birthing center there is called Roots, and they're amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, they couldn't do anything, and they in Minnesota they also couldn't even come into the hospital to help. So it was I was with these people for so long, and then suddenly like off to the next. You're
Oh,
at 41 in 6 days.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, tough.
yeah. That's so frustrating.
But
Yeah.
the power of motherhood to connect people to our sexuality, and yet the whole mother whore complex that tells the populace that that isn't an untruth.
Yeah,
That's that's why we're doing what we're doing, eh?
totally. Yeah, well, I mean, part of what my big project and goal feels like is like connecting the dots between orgasm and fertility and birth and motherhood and menopause, that there's like they're not all separate things, they're like all part of a healthy female sexuality, and that if we're taught how to feel our bodies and how to have orgasms um and how to listen. Like there's something called the pelvic pulse. Have you read the book Vagina? You should read
No. And
it.
I'm also like, I want to be in your pelvis class.
You should come. You should.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
there's
sorry from
this
the sounds of the
amazing.
city.
Oh, sorry.
I know my sirens. I'm like, I should mute that. So sorry.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. That's okay.
Oh, okay, good. It was like totally rocking my head, but good.
Oh. Um, There's this amazing book called Vagina where she talks a lot about the pelvic nerve or the pudendal nerve, which, like wraps around the whole pelvis, and it's part of like the nerves of the clitoris, and it goes all the way around to the G spot and the cervix and then around through the butt, and it goes all the way up this to the spine, up the
Mm,
spine and to the brain. And there's this whole feedback loop between the pelvis and the brain. And so there are studies about, I think it's called the pelvic pulse, that essentially it's like if we're able to listen, to feel our pelvis and to listen to our pelvis, and taught that this is a place of safety and of messages from the body, that we can actually notice when we feel safe and when we don't feel safe, that there are like messages, and that the pulse will quicken in times where it feels like, oh, I don't like this, I need to get out of here, that there's a pulse in your pelvis that will let you know that communicates to the brain. Um, and then in other times, right, the pulse will slow down and you feel like warm and juicy and safe. And that, that's a message that like you feel good there and you should stay. And
uh,
um, it just
this-
would be such a different world, I think, if little girls were taught that, like to listen to the pelvis rather than like, cut yourself off from the waist down because it's not safe. And, what if it was like that's it's actually a place of wisdom, and that we can listen to these messages and follow them, and that if you actually know how to follow your own pleasure and your own body, that if you then choose to have babies later, like birth will be much easier if you're very in tune with the muscles and bones and organs of the pelvis. um,
that has-
Fertility potentially will be easier. Like that's such a big issue now too, because people are waiting longer to have babies and, on hormonal birth control, and then realizing like, oh, this actually isn't so easy sometimes to get pregnant, can take a long time. Um,
yeah, yeah, totally. God, this is so fascinating, but it's reminded me of one thing that Kim, my midwife, had taught me about that s- the the like vaginal canal and the cervix is like a mirror to the throat, and
yes.
yeah, I think that that is biologically fascinating and something that also has been so healing for me to know and notice. Like if I'm feeling tight in my throat and my jaw, how tight I feel down there, and
Yeah.
also how oh, this is so twisted thing to me, like how porn has been a video tool for us to see how sex is. So people then are turning up the dials a bit, like maybe over exaggerating certain things to lean into the performance of it all, to capture people's attention more. And that's then made people believe that a woman screaming out in ecstasy is actually some performative lie that isn't true. But
Oh.
like
Mhm.
Joe and I have, when we were conceiving our firstborn, we're doing some camming. And it was COVID time. It was fun. And I was kind of moaning, and somebody commented once in the chat and said like, "Ugh, eye roll, like what a performance. Like
Oh
this isn't real."
no.
But just that idea that people now think that tuning into your vocal cords while you're having sex is wrong, and now people are trying to stifle that, but how backward that is. Because it's like truly, if you are moaning, that is a positive thing. That means
Yeah.
that you're open and it's all connected anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, as long as it's not performative, right? It's like there is, I mean, because you see this in birth too, right? That there are
Mhm.
sounds that help you e- explore and connect to your pelvis, like typically the lower sounds, right? When you start going
Mhm.
these lower moans, and you can feel like, oh, she's feeling her pelvis. She's really in there, right?
Yeah.
Versus these other sounds that are like, and usually it's like, oh, okay, she went up this way, right? And um, like one
Yeah.
of the other things in vagina that I really love in the book, I can't remember her name. Her last name is Wolf, the writer. Someone Wolf.
I had
I'll,
just
I'll
Googled it.
yeah, I'll send you this the name. But there are these studies that show that when women have really, really good orgasms, like full body orgasms, which usually means that there's, stimulation on the clitoris, the G spot, the cervix, that there's like more than like just external stimulation or just internal stimulation, that it's like a full body thing, that the thinking part of the brain turns off. And
Mhm.
so when we talk about like wild woman or like this kind of fierce sexual being, like that actually happens, right? Like the thinking brain turns off, and then you turn into this like wild animal, and the sounds that come out of you don't actually have any control, and it can be a little scary, right? Like there is, like, in French the orgasm is le petit mort, right? The like the small death, and it is like that. It's like your ego completely turns off and you're just this like wild animal, and that's, like that's what's so great about
That's right. It's fucking so cool. Like that's the kind of thing that people pay money to take drugs to make them feel,
yeah,
where it's a power that we have in our own bodies. Just
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's truly so, sex is so, so fucking cool. And it's such a shame that people think of it as a hush hush thing to just whisper about, and
right.
how much they're depriving themselves when they have that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because it's like there's pornography, and then there also is this sense that like it's this shallow, unimportant thing, or some, that like if you're marrying I mean, I wouldn't say like if you're marrying someone just for sex, then maybe that is shallow, but that like the sex piece isn't important or something. I don't know. And to me, I'm like, it's so important, and I mean, I was thinking about that too, like sex after kids, that for me, it's become so much more important. Like, I didn't really think about it so much before having kids because we just had sex all the time. I didn't, it was so integrated into our life. And we did so many other things too because we had so much time and energy before having kids.
Hmm.
And then we had kids, and after our first was born right before COVID, and there were a few years there where we were like barely having sex and we did not like each other very much. I mean, I'd have to confirm with my husband, but I wasn't having a very good time. It was like, "Ugh, this sucks." And I forgot, I kind of forgot how important that sexual connection and being in tune to pleasure was, because I got so caught up in taking care of my baby and feeling like that was my job now, and that my own needs and my own pleasure was like this shallow side thing and not that important. And it took me a while to really flip that around and be like, oh my God, it's actually even more important now. And I have to like carve out time for that and schedule it and make sure that we're connecting in that way, that I'm connected to pleasure.
I'm doing full body nods over here because yes, yes. This is something that kind of drives me nuts in a way because yes, that experience is so normal and I also had a similar feeling where you like I it was so difficult for me because in one side my impulse was like 3 days after having a kid, all I want right now is to feel like overcome with pleasure with my guy, because I'm so grateful for how great he was taking care of me and the baby. I was so excited about this thing that happened. But then you get bogged down in all of the stress that parents are faced with, which is just a known epidemic. And so the stress then wears down your physical ability to even surrender to pleasure. So it's a cycle and it is difficult and you need to consciously choose to step off of it and prioritize it 100%. Your life is so much more busy, but that once you do, it just feeds back into the way that you take care of yourself, the way that you don't let yourself go, the way not like letting yourself go physically, of course, like fuck beauty standards and all that, but like you know what I mean, that you need to keep prioritizing yourself and not just become a person who takes care of others because resentment will build. Loss of self isn't a good thing, for anyone.
Mhm.
So yeah, full body nod. And it also just drives me nuts in a way that these conversations online where new moms get so angry, and I understand where the anger is coming from when like doctors say you can't have sex for 6 weeks, but then they're like, oh, but it should be way longer than that. Like, I do not want my husband touching me. It's like, where is the self-connection here? Where is the reminder that pleasure is also a beautiful thing for you that's going to help you de-stress and heal? And like, I
Yeah.
don't know why people always stop and think that it's the male partner who wants sex, and that should mean that it should be off the table. Like,
Yeah.
I just the way that sex is pushed aside as something, yeah, superficial, like you say, and unnecessary. It's not serving anyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I think a big part of it too is that women, I mean, especially in the US, like we have no culture of care after birth, right? So
Yeah.
what I would say is like after 6 weeks, you need to be taking care of your pelvic floor. Go to a pelvic floor PT, like get to know your whole new pelvis. And before you have sex with your partner, like masturbate and self pleasure and take really, really good care of yourself and connect back into your own pleasure. And then from that space, you're probably going to want to have sex with your partner.
Yes, yes. And I should have like ostracized that. Like when I use the word sex, I don't even mean just intercourse, like I consider masturbation to be sex and mutual masturbation to be sex. And so yeah, this like the whole like umbrella of it all feels like it gets a bad rap when it really is a tool for that postpartum healing, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've started to think of it as like a health and wellness tonic, it's something that mothers really need
Yes.
and that partners and parents and married people, like anyone under a lot of stress, which seems like it's all of us, but especially parents, seem to really need this health and wellness and relaxation tonic.
Yeah, really. Like I haven't had a dishwasher for the majority of my adult life, and I've found that this has been a very important spiritual lesson for me
Yeah.
to just consider physically in front of me the accumulation that a life brings onto a person. Like every day you
Yeah.
are making dirty dishes, and that is something that if you aren't t washing them every single day, you will at the end of the week have a mountain of fucking dirty dishes.
Yeah.
And that in physical form is the exact thing that's happening to your body in the stress that you're accumulating every day. And at the
Mhm.
end of the week, if you don't have an active stress practice where you're washing your fucking dishes of your spirit and your and your soul and all this shit, you
Yeah.
will have an accumulated amount of stress that is like a heap of dirty dishes that you have to take care of. And you can do it
Yeah.
once a day with a fucking 5 minutes of rest and breathing, or you can do it once a week with an hour of savasana pose,
Mhm.
but like you have to take care of yourself. And if you don't, there will be repercussions. And
Yes.
um, yeah, I'm tangenting all the time here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm just seeing my computer is about to die because I didn't plug it in. So either I can run and get my plug if you want to talk a little bit more, or I feel like we've had a really good conversation already.
It's been a meaty, juicy combo. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this
Yeah,
is,
Carol, I'd love to know more. Like you said, your goals, you want to connect all of these dots and how that they're coming through your world. And I just love to keep tuned in to how you're doing all of this. Okay. I think that is really rad.
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the dishwashing metaphor and feeling like, yes, it's nervous system health. Like sexuality is part of taking care of our nervous system, and releasing all of this tension from our pelvis, from our brains. And yeah,
Yeah, it is. And how cool is it that you can do that with your partner to then also make you more connected to them in that whole process and that they can see the pain you've been under, the disconnection from self that you've been feeling and help you move through that and come out the other side feeling more grounded as an individual and more connected as a couple. That's truly the coolest thing on earth. And why does
yeah.
it have such a weird taboo rap, you know?
I know. It definitely makes me a better mom too. If I've had some orgasms, I'm much nicer to my kids.
Totally, totally. And on that topic, I think that a bit of CBD for new moms is almost a necessity as well.
Yeah, sure. I love that too.
Yeah, helping people stay relaxed and taken care of.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I got to get this baby plugged in. So
Yes,
you've
well,
been
it's been a
all my help.
pleasure.
Thank you so much for meeting with me.
No, yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
meeting with me too.
let's stay in touch. We can do it again soon.
Let's, for sure.
Yeah, well, so nice to meet you.
You too. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.